Hello and welcome to this webinar on SharePoint tagging made simple. Over the next few minutes we will look at the benefits of tagging SharePoint documents with metadata and how it is possible to achieve automated metadata tagging with relatively little setup effort. We have an eBook to accompany this webinar that provides more detail on the topics that we will cover today, so we'll keep this webinar short and allow you to investigate the contents of the eBook further at your leisure. The eBook was written by well-known SharePoint search expert Agnes Molnar, founder of Search Explained. Your sign up for this webinar will have included a link for you to download the eBook. In this webinar, we'll be looking at the issue of findability and how metadata tagging can dramatically improve findability in SharePoint. Then we will consider how to get started with planning which metadata tags should be defined into SharePoint. And we will finish up with a demonstration of Aquaforest Searchlight Tagger that will show how straightforward it can be to automate metadata tagging. We should explain that what we mean by tagging in SharePoint is the application of metadata to specific documents or list items. This metadata will describe the content of the document in some way that is useful to a user, such as keyword or ID number. Once metadata has been defined, SharePoint has several capabilities that can take advantage of this that dramatically improve the findability and usability. This includes being able to use metadata as the subject of search refiners, views and filters. Now we can look at some SharePoint examples. Here is a typical SharePoint library before tagging. As is often the case if tagging is not mandatory, the majority of the metadata columns are left blank. Looking at the same library after tagging, we can see that the library has been enriched with metadata for patent ID, keywords and people. This was achieved automatically with Aquaforest Searchlight Tagger. We will explain how this was managed shortly, but first it is worth considering some of the benefits of having this metadata available. Having this metadata improves findability by allowing searching directly on the contents of a particular metadata column, as you can see here, or by enhancing search with refiners or faceted search, as can be seen on the left-hand side of this search panel in this example. And there are also other benefits like being able to sort and create views based on metadata. Now we're going to move on to getting started with defining metadata columns for tagging in your SharePoint environment. The first step is to define the search schema, and that's usually best done by working with the users to define which columns need to be defined as metadata columns, and beyond that, what search-related facilities should be made available within SharePoint for each column. These facilities naturally include being able to search on the column, but also to be able to use the column for the creation of views, search result refinement, and sorting, and the appearance of the column in the search results display template. This will help define both the metadata columns and the required SharePoint configuration. There are a number of different data types that can be used for metadata columns. The most important distinction between the types is firstly managed or unmanaged. In most cases we use unmanaged metadata in SharePoint, for example single line text field, multi-line text field, number, date, time and so on. Now in the case of these types of metadata, users can enter their own values. The users are free to use different forms and synonyms without any external control. We can set up rules and governance practices about what values should be used, but it's everyone's responsibility to follow those guidelines. In other cases, metadata is managed by metadata owners or taxonomists, a group of users who are responsible for creating, maintaining and curating the metadata as part of the organization's knowledge management system. And this provides managed metadata provided by the SharePoint term store. And this provides the richest features with control and flexibility. And we'll see some examples of how SharePoint Tagger can actually automatically integrate with this in the demonstration. Now we can move on to looking at what is actually involved in installing, configuring and running Aquaforest Searchlight to enable automated tagging in SharePoint and Office 365. In the demonstration, we will show product installation and generation of metadata using 3 of the different methods available. The product can be installed on any server with network access to the SharePoint or Office 365 implementations that you wish to generate metadata for. Generally, this will not be a server that's hosting SharePoint. It could be an on-premises server or in the cloud using Azure, for example. Searchlight Tagger can be downloaded from the Aquaforest website, or a VM can be spun up from our entry on Azure Marketplace. The installation itself is very quick, and once completed, the product can be launched and a metadata job can be created. We will demonstrate creating and running a job to use 3 different methods of metadata generation. Firstly, we need to define the document library, site or site collection that we wish to generate metadata for by specifying the location and security credentials. We then define which types of files, such as PDF or Word, we would like to process and define selection filters. For our first example, we're going to use natural language processing to extract names from documents and assign them to a managed metadata column. This involves making use of one of the NLP services that are made available from Searchlight Tagger. All of the services have free tiers for lower volumes and are chargeable for higher volumes. The product documentation has further details. Once the job is completed, we can see that the metadata column's name, people, has been populated with the names of people found within the document. In our second example, we're going to show automated zonal text extraction to obtain the title for each document in our example. Using a sample document template, we define the area where we want to extract the text from and define the metadata column that we want to map it to. Running the job in Searchlight Tagger shows the text that is extracted, and this can then be seen in the SharePoint document library. For our final example, we will show an example of generating keyword metadata by cross-referencing the document contents with an existing taxonomy defined within the SharePoint term store. Here we can see the term set and how we can configure the job accordingly. Once the job is run, we can see the creation of terms added to the keywords column in our library. Aquaforest Searchlight Tagger also provides a number of other methods for tagging, including extracting values from barcodes, PDF form fields, PDF metadata, and more sophisticated text extraction via rules processing. One other point to note is that any automatic tagging will require that the relevant documents are fully text searchable, which Office documents will be, but many organisations have perhaps 20% of their PDFs as image only where they originated as scans or images. These files can be detected by Aquaforest Searchlight OCR and made fully searchable. Thank you for watching this short webinar. We hope that it's proved interesting, and please do review the associated ebook and consider visiting our site to download trial versions of our products. For any additional information, or if you would like to arrange a one-to-one demonstration session, please feel free to contact me directly at the address shown.